know if it's because
There it goes.
Now it's live. That's why. There's
so what I was saying is, like, for example, in Tina's piece, she says patting her back to comfort her. And I feel like sometimes, yes, duh, you can obviously tell that that is why he is patting her back, even though people say, you're head hopping. How do you know he's comforting her? That makes me really irritated because I feel like a lot of times it is very obvious what the other person's intention is from the perspective of the person who is watching. So I feel like in a critique or an edit, people would call that head hopping. And if a discussion were to happen, they'd say, oh, yes, absolutely. That is head hopping. There's no way she would know that he was trying to comfort her, what his motive or intention was. But I feel like the author should be able to say things like patting her back to comfort her because it's very obvious to the person. I don't think you need to say as if to comfort her or I suppose he was trying to comfort her because then I think it becomes too wordy and annoying. So convince me I'm wrong.
Isn't that where creative license comes in for the author?
I would argue yes.
The rules that you are allowed to bend at will.
Right, and you can pat somebody on the back in a congratulatory way. You can pat somebody on the back in like a, friendly way. And then there's comforting and they look different from the person on the outside and watching it. You can tell the difference between those three kinds of patting someone on the back.
But I would say that if this were put up before a bunch of people who were like grammarians or whatever, that they would agree that you should say as if to comfort her instead of saying patting her back to comfort her. And so
I don't care what they would say.
Yeah. You don't need that kind of
like that's just so nitpicky. It's annoying.
Okay, to be the devil's advocate.
That's what I was waiting for.
To be the devil's advocate. So anyone can say that, well, they're just being nitpicky. So then I can just ignore any sort of criticism or advice I get from anybody by saying, well, they're just being nitpicky because I know what's best about my writing, which is not where we are. We are in a critique group and we're supposed to be open, right? So what I would say is, for me, like, to address your question, Jamie, it depends on if it's a problem for the writer or not. If someone is a good writer and they don't have issues with head hopping and they do this one time in their piece, I am not even going to notice it, let alone critique it.
But I think that's the issue. If it pops out at you.
Or it's repetitious, like happens more than once, that's when it becomes an issue. So yes, well, a group of grammarians look at this and the grammar Nazis say, no, you can't do this. Well, yeah, that's their job. That's who they are. That's what they do. And then like Rhonda said, it's our choice, a creative license, whether we're going to keep it or not. That's how I feel about it.
All righty. Well, obviously, I have each of your pieces loaded up here in a Google Doc, and I have decided to try making my suggestions as edit suggestions. You know how you have that option in Google Docs? Do you guys know about that? So I'm trying that this time because I figure then how nice for people to have that.
Right, I agree. All right, so who's first? Have we done Randy Miser yet to see?
No.
For those of you that just tuning in, that's what we've named the randomizer. Randy, he's our buddy. Because we say that all the time, but people may be like, who's Randy?
Well, you also have a husband named Randy. So
I do. So that's who Randy is. He's
we should just text
closet.
Randy and ask him to put.
He's in a little closet pulling names out of a hat, texting it to us. Yeah.
I feel like when you say Randy Miser, that it's obvious that it's a pun.
To us, it is.
Most people should get that, but you never know.
I don't know. I'm kind of slow on the uptake sometimes. I don't always get that kind of stuff. Maybe it's just me.
All right, Rhonda. Randy decided you had to be first, and then Jamie, Tina, Jen.
Oh, I'm last.
Everybody's a critic. Randy, you've biffed it today.
Yes.
I'm mad at you.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Well, Tina, you're not last.
Yeah, who's going first again, Rhonda?
Rhonda.
Wow, Tina. Yes. Yes. I also was confused, so thanks for asking. Okay, so Rhonda's first. All right, so what we do normally is we say, so what kind of feedback are you looking for?
Okay, so this is, okay, so we have our the one that you guys have been reading recently, that's Z, that's the first one in the series. And then we have the one that you guys started reading originally that we put on hold until we got this first one done.
That
So
was the
this
rich
one-
woman who was dead in the mansion.
Yes, that's that one.
Okay.
And then this one is the one that will be coming after. So this is the third book in the series. And we decided to send you guys this one today because the one we're working on now, it's too confusing to... I mean, I don't want to say your feedback's not valuable because it definitely is. It definitely has been helpful. But since you haven't gotten things in order, we decided it would just be easier for you guys to start out at a new one that we already have a good portion of it written and help us with that one. So these are different characters. You don't know any of them. Doesn't relate to anything in the other novels that you've read.
But it's the same series, even though it doesn't relate at
Same
all.
series. Oh, no.
It's
I
a
mean,
new storyline. It's kind of like another Poirot mystery or whatever.
yes.
Yes.
It's going to be the same town. It's going to be Nettie's going to show up, but this is the very first scene in that third novel.
Okay. So if our feedback isn't important, what do you want from us?
No. It is very important. I specifically said it's very important.
Okay.
But we just want to hear what you think about this. If it's a good intro, if you're interested in finding out what happens next. Actually, Mom, hang on, give me 1 second. Mom sent me a text a little while ago. All right, so we want to know what questions it raises for you. That is our main question.
What questions? Okay. Got it.
Got it.
All right. It's almost like Rhonda gets to phone a friend. If she
Yeah,
needs some backup.
That's not fair.
Mom, they're saying that my character is whatever. All right. So here we go. All right, Rhonda. So how we do this is Rhonda does not get to talk while we are discussing her piece. So she's going into the isolation chamber. And I have her piece pulled up here. So who wants to go first?
Well, my first question that I want answered is, what in the world is this guy looking for?
Right.
That the guy sold for $150. It's worth way more, and that got him killed. So if that was what you were going for, good job.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
I to start off with, Bread, love this. I was like loving it at the whole time I read it. It's only a page and a half, and I was on the edge of my seat. So I guess, all right. So, but to do questions, my first question is, what's the significance of the color green? Because green is peppered throughout this at least 1, 2, 3, 4 times in a page and a half. So that leads me to believe that that's something significant. And so I'll start like looking for green stuff the more I read. So that's, I thought that was really cool. I really loved the bottom of the first page, faded to a shiny tan, when talking about the old leather wallet, because that's what would happen as it got pulled in and out of the back pocket. So, yeah, and I'm like, Tina, I want to know, what's he looking for? And obviously whatever it is worth like $150,000 because the person paid $150 for it, but it's worth 100,000 more. So, or 100 times that or whatever. So yeah, right. That's right. Math, right?
Yeah.
That's good.
My question is, who is this person? Because she had to do a lot of gymnastics to avoid saying his name.
Uh-huh.
So, the only clue we get is that it's a man who is younger than this Herbert Stamps person. Bread, yes, just like you lady said, I think it totally stirs up exactly the right questions. I think it completely, you're supposed to want to know, what is this valuable object? And yeah, like, and I don't have many questions. Well, since I'm asked what questions do I have, now that I'm thinking about it, I guess I would like to know, how did Herbert Stamps come to possess whatever this valuable object is? And how is it that Herbert had no idea that it was very, very valuable? And, you know, come to pawn it or whatever for way less than what it was worth. So those are the questions that it generated in me. And again, with Bread, like you said, it is very engaging and very much a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Also on top of that, like, from reading this, I'm guessing that Herbert is a hoarder. So what would make him sell something? Like, why would he even for $150 get rid of something? That was my first question. But again, like that's just from a page and a half. So maybe he's not a hoarder. But that was my first thought was, oh, he's a hoarder. So maybe because I looked around my house for a second. Who knows?
Well, let me just comfort you, Jen, because you've kind of mentioned how because I used to be like, am I a hoarder? Which I think there's a spectrum. Although what someone told me, which I thought was very comforting, is if you are able to get rid of stuff and recognize that there is an issue that you need to clean up and you are able to do it, then you're not in danger, because hoarder is a processing or mental thing where you can't relinquish. Anyway, so back to
I don't really think I'm a hoarder. I live with a house full of hoarders. That's the issue.
Oh, yeah. I know. And then you kind of feel like, oh my goodness, if I get rid of all their stuff, am I going to give them some other kind of complex when they're adults? That, you know what I mean? Like you can't just go in and get rid of everything. Anyway.
Just one more thing for them to discuss with a therapist someday.
Yes. When you're on the couch. Mm-hmm.
Okay, back to the story.
Yeah, sorry.
The only piece of meat that I have was when the guy looked around him and then said the house wasn't very big, just living room, dining room, kitchen, bath, and a couple of bedrooms upstairs. I think that she could have just said the house wasn't very big.
I agree. I totally put a line through that.
Pulled me out.
Yeah.
Of what otherwise was riveting.
Yeah, most of my meat was just stuff that was unnecessary that in my suggestions, I put a line through that doesn't need to be there. And again, it was a little tricky not identifying the man. So there was a little too much of but he and him. So you're kind of a little bit confused. So anyway, I made some suggestions, but nothing.
I didn't get caught up in that. I didn't stumble with that at all. So maybe it was
nothing huge. I mean, she can change it the way that I suggest or not, But overall,
I didn't have a whole lot of meat. I love the first paragraph a whole lot. After get up, old man. I love that he proved to be just as frail as he was stubborn. I just that paragraph is a great paragraph. So I don't have any meat as I'm looking through this. Sorry, Rhonda.
Yeah, and again, mine is all just kind of line editing stuff, which I'm going to share with her, and that's basically it. Bottom line is, I think mission accomplished.
Mm-hmm. Only thing, I guess, if I were finding me, is it does feel like it's a completely different series to me. I know we only have a page and a half of it, but it doesn't have the same feel as
like Bobby Socks and
yes.
50s Jukebox and all that.
Well, yeah,
but neither did the Mansion, really.
No, but see, that's what I'm comparing it to, not the Bobby Socks thing, the Mansion. The Mansion still was like not, this is very like gripping and very like, this guy is evil. We don't start off with the evil person. The other one we start off with, she is, I mean, we're in the head of the person that gets killed, who does not appear to be a bad person. So it just feels different. Maybe once I read the whole thing, I won't feel that way, but at least with this. So, I guess it's just
valuable.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else before we let her out? All right, Rhonda, come out to play.
Okay, thank you. That was great. Jen, I agree that it's got a different feel, and that's the entirety of the first scene. So I think when you read the next scene, I probably will get more into that. But we'll discuss that for sure. Thank you, everybody, for everything. I do agree that maybe a couple phrases can be taken out here and there. So we'll look at that. And I really appreciate all the feedback. It's very, very helpful.
Great. Did we have the right questions? Is there anything you wanted us to ask that we didn't have?
So the green thing, huh?
Maybe.
Oh, she's not gonna
love that. I love that.
Oh, and I did not mention also I like State Road blah de blah because I'm like, oh, Davison.
Oh yeah.
Home sweet home.
Yeah, I like that. So nice little touch there. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Randy says I'm next. I just want general overall impressions. That's all I want. That's all.
Okay. My bread is I don't know. I know she's read some, she's been reading Agatha Christie, but I also know that she has also read some Ray Bradbury. And this to me, just kind of, maybe it's the carnival thing or whatever, but I just kind of was taken back to Something Wicked This Way Comes. I don't know if she's read it or not, but if not, she needs to, because it's a good book. But I really love the whole carnival thing, and it was very gripping, and I want more. Like, I got to the end, I'm just like, no, this cannot be all that we get. So that would be my bread. You guys want to share your bread before I go any further? Most of mine's editing stuff.
Well, this was really fun for me because this started out as a writing prompt in a writing group that Rhonda and Jamie and I are in, where we each had to write a separate part of the same story from a different character. So we all had to write the same story, but from a different character's point of view. Mm-hmm. So I was Helga, the bearded lady.
Awesome.
And I don't recall if this was what she actually wrote back then, or if this is a continuation of what she wrote back then, but it felt very familiar, but at the same time, it was really exciting to read it again and go back and kind of reminisce and remember like what I wrote about Helga. Like, so I feel like I have some inside information because I was Helga.
Not literally, but we get what you're saying.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, I'm so glad that you said that, Tina, because I was hoping that this was a continuation of that story, because I remember when we did that exercise and it was so much fun. I think it was my favorite one that we did. And so, Jen, I can see how you would think that maybe Something Wicked This Way Comes, because I know what you're talking about. But I totally was laughing through so many of the parts of it. And whether I should have been or not, but part of it was the memory of us writing that before, and part of it was some of the details she put in here. But I've got just a ton of bread. I love some of the details, just the dog sitting pretty. And I like the touch of the son saying good morning in his father's voice in his head. And
love that.
A ton of meat. So.
Yeah.
I didn't laugh at all. Like, I didn't get that feeling from this at all. So I wonder if I'm just missing it, or if it is more about like the memories you have of
probably
that writing group.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, what character would you write from, Rhonda, when we were?
I was one of the 20-year-old women at the ride.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's what it is, Jennifer, is that we know like the backstory, and it was kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of a bearded woman and like a murder, like that's, yeah. All right. So for me, like in the middle of the first page, it's good morning, mother. But then the next sentence, good morning, Judy. Who's Judy? Like, we don't ever hear anything about Judy the rest of the time. Like, I don't know who Judy is.
That's a good point.
I love, like, Jane or Tina already said this about him talking for his dad. Like, I put a little sad face, but that's a good thing because it just like kind of got my heart. So just kind of like more like edity things. Halfway down the second page, the paper said the police had arrested that lunch lady. What lunch lady? So maybe, since you guys wrote in different parts, maybe it's in one of your other parts. Is it the lunch lady from their school? Or, so I think I need more information for that. Also, I don't love that she refers to the mother as Sarah. I know she introduced her earlier as Sarah, but we're inside. We're from the perspective of Junior, and he would not have like thought Sarah said this. It would have been him saying my mother said, or mother said. And then this is a great example. I'm really glad that she submitted this for anyone who's one of our subscribers, because we can talk about dialogue a bit. On the third page, the dialogue I felt was a bit too repetitive. There was something said, and then the attribution. Something said, then the attribution. Something said, and then the attribution. And it got it brought me out of the actual conversation because it was just so like uniform. I would probably change like, I'm not expecting anyone, Enid said, like, because it's like the third one down or something. I would say, Enid shrugged. I'm not expecting anyone. Just to kind of break it up a little bit, because I see there's a lot of characters, so I see that she needs to attribute who's saying what. But like, I think that what is it, Hyacinth? Sarah asked. Who's at the door? Enid asked. I think that could just be eliminated. I think that's already been established that they're curious. And then the last one, what the bearded lady Junior said, it should be, I think, asked. And then the very first line on the next page, a carnival freak is here. Enid asked. You could just take Enid asked off, because the next sentence, Sarah says, Enid, really? Sarah said. So clearly it was Enid that just spoke. So those are just some tools to use when you're writing dialogue, and ways to, like, so you don't have to constantly be attributing it to who's saying it. So that's all super edity, nitpicky, and that's really the only meat that I had, because it was so well written. The other line that I love, Hyacinth did not speak, just continued worrying the end of her apron and nodding. She could have said twisting the apron. She could have said as she twisted her apron, which is very tell, not show. She said worrying the end. That is just so poetic and tells us so much in just a couple of words what's going on with that character, and I love that. So
okay. I've got something. You mentioned Judy and Sarah. Now, I don't know if I'm right, but this is just the way I pictured it when I was reading it, is that Judy is Junior's mother, and then Sarah is Junior's sister, and she's got a child there also. And maybe I read that wrong. So
yeah, because he says here, he says that his mother's mom, Sarah, was wearing an oversized sunglasses to hide blah, blah, blah. So Sarah is his mom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I love this piece. I thought it was great. I'm so excited that she's going on with it.
Me too.
We all love it. I guess that's it. All right.
I don't have any meat. I mean, I wish that she had directly asked a question that I could directly answer about it, but I loved it.
Oh, I love the whole Juanita, the former cook, that whole subplot too.
Yes, definitely. I mean, why did she get rid of her so quickly? Just because she couldn't speak Spanish?
Why was she jealous?
Uh-huh.
All right. Anything else before we let her out? All right, Jamie, join us in the circle.
All right. So I'm very thankful for your feedback. It's all very valid and very awesome. I think Judy was just an early name of a character that got changed, is all that it is. So he was probably saying good morning to the sister, but since her name got changed later on, it just got overlooked not to make that change. I don't know, Jennifer, if you had read this more in the spirit that it was meant, if the so-and-so said, so-and-so said, so-and-so said might have felt a little more like comical ping pong. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So I don't know if they will all stay. I think it's very valid. Like I'm saying, your feedback is valid, and I will reevaluate to see if I want to kind of change it around. But sometimes when you're being funny, you know, who could that be? Junior said, heavens, that's loud. Sarah said, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like it kind of becomes a device. But if this isn't comedy and it isn't reading like comedy, people aren't going to catch that. And it's going to, like I'm saying, your critique is very solid. And I will say, I feel kind of bad because I sort of threw this out there and should have just kind of said, this is exactly the piece that I submitted for our writing group. And the reason that I submitted it to you guys is because it was after midnight on the day to submit. And I'm like, what am I going to submit to these people? Because I was not happy with anything I had written for Camp Nano. I had nothing. And so I'm like, well, I already edited this once, obviously, because I was submitting it to writing group and we were submitting edited pieces there. So I didn't even really look at it and I just sent it through. So I sort of apologize for kind of quote unquote tricking you two, but I'm really glad that you appreciated going back to this world because it is very, very a fun place to be, isn't it? And so also Jen, I'm sorry that left you out of the loop. I should have maybe prefaced it with letting you guys know what was going on.
No apologies. I enjoyed reading it.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. And I think all the feedback was very valid and the meat was very spot on and stuff that I should really look at. So I really appreciate you guys speaking the truth. That's great.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Are you going to continue this?
Well, it does go on. The story gets to the very end and, you know, there's this thing that is revealed. And so possibly like.
Are they in a diner?
Okay.
That's
Tina,
what
that
I
was
remember.
the piece that I was looking for. I was looking for that piece where, because that was, okay, like we had 2 submissions for that carnival scenario. And the other one was the diner worker. Yeah. And the carnies came in the next day and there was like this confrontation.
That's why I thought this was a continuation, because I remember very clearly the diner scene and how much I loved it. So
yeah, and then I didn't find that until after I had already submitted. So
So
okay.
you can submit that next week.
maybe, yeah, let you guys see how you like that one. It was a very different take on the whole prompt.
Tina, do you still have your portion of this?
Mm-hmm.
We should send them to Jen so she can catch up.
Yes.
That'd be fun. Yes.
I gotta see if
like
I
that.
still have mine. I'm sure I do. I don't.
Awesome.
I am a hoarder.
And I'll
Document
post
hoarder
them.
on my computer.
Why don't you send them to me? Send yours to me, Rhonda, and I'll post them on the Patreon, because
Okay.
the Postcast is just for our patrons. So
If you have a hard time finding it, just go to the Facebook group that's still there for our writing group, and
Oh, yeah.
you'll find it submitted there as a file, probably, because
That's
that's
right, I
a
forgot.
link, because that's what I did. So thanks, guys,
What-
for the awesome
what-
feedback. Huh?
One more question. The very last sentence, Junior says the word send. What does that mean? Is that something I'm just not used to people saying? Like, it says send, Junior began, then quickly scan the article.
Oh, no, editing error. Should
Oh.
be send her in or show her in. I just didn't edit
Oh.
it well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sweet.
My bad. Okay, so thanks a lot, you guys. And sorry, it was just the best I could do under, like, I don't know
I
why
love
submission
reading it.
day came right up on me real fast.
Mhm.
I totally forgot
All of us.
about it until I saw Jennifer apologizing for not having hers in, and I went,
Yeah, frankly, it just all made me feel a lot better. I'm like, oh goodness, I'm not the only one that had the day doomsday sneak up on me. So
Yeah. Well, when I
Awesome.
submitted mine like 7 hours late or whatever it was, and I saw Jamie was the only one in there, I didn't feel so bad.
I didn't even look at who was in there. I just all of a sudden realized I wasn't in there, and I was like,
Aw.
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll all do better next time. Okay.
Yeah.
So what did Random say? Random
Tina's
said
next.
Bambina.
I'm
Tina
in the hot
Bambina.
seat.
All right. So I'm guessing this is a writing exercise, Tina.
Yes.
From what inspiration? Like why did you do this?
This is pre-writing for my novel to get into the head of Angelica at the moment of the wound that she suffered. That is like the basis for
Oh.
her false belief that propels her into the actual story. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
So I actually was following Story Genius. It's a book, and it's a book that shows you how to do a story blueprint. And part of the pre-exercises before you actually get to your story, and you were supposed to write in the first person so that you could actually be in the character and actually feel what the character was feeling, and so that's what that was.
All right. Well, I have questions for you, but they should probably wait till after your meat and bread session. So,
Okay.
all right. So she's in the isolation booth. Who has something to say?
I love it.
I love it also.
Me
I think
too.
it could easily be a flashback or a dream sequence of some sort. Now, it's written in first person, and the book isn't written in first person, so
Mhm.
that would take some editing. But I feel like this kind of thing here is what's missing in a lot of ways from the story. This is very much gives us insight to the character of Angelica. It makes her
Mhm.
feel very real to me. Makes me like just like my heart wrenching because I already know what's happened. So that's why I think it'd be a great like flashback, because if the reader already kind of knows that her mom is gone and then reads this, then you're like, oh, this poor little girl doesn't even know what's about to happen, as you read it. So I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if she didn't want to add it to the book specifically, she could always, I think it'd be very valuable for her blog readers or Patreon or something.
Newsletter.
Yeah, newsletter. I hope that she does something with it because it was a great story. And I think you're right that she could use more of that in the book, probably.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe she's added that. It's been a long time since she's showed us anything in the book.
I would just like to say that in the past, when I have been struggling to articulate what I want as opposed to what this author has submitted, I want this author. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's almost like I don't know how for her to get to here, because she'll write this that is just so amazing, and like, this person is a mind-blowing, amazing writer, blah blah blah. And then I know that there's been pieces that she submitted, I've been very harsh and yet not able to really articulate what it is that is different. Do you see what I'm saying? And I don't know how she accesses this writing voice, or is it a voice? Like, what is it that is different about this than what I've been not able to put my finger on it.
Like a different source of inspiration or something.
Yeah.
I'm curious to how she wrote this, meaning like, so it was a prompt. Did she sit down and set a timer and just do it? She's often said to us that she has to sit and daydream for a while before she writes. But I think sometimes that's her detriment. That's the problem. I think that when we've done writing sprints, like for the show, for the podcast,
this writer shows up. Yeah.
Yes, this is the same voice. And that I think that the problem is when she overthinks it or I think you need to plan. I think, you know me, I think you need to plan before you write. But I feel like that that this is the writer that we all know and expect. So
yeah. And I mean, how do you get this person to show up every time? And like you said, maybe in the other instances she's trying too hard to make it good instead of just speaking her truth into the document. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, because think about it, what she told us before we started. This is a throwaway. This is just a writing exercise. This isn't anything that anyone else is going to see. This isn't so that maybe is the key there, is that she's doesn't care what that. So she's just going to like really get her heart into it because no one else is going to see this. But here we are seeing this, saying this is what everybody needs to see.
Yeah,
I just totally
like the
got
less pressure, the better she writes.
Yes, I just totally got goosebumps because it's like, as artists, when we put something out there, sometimes it's very personal. So if someone doesn't like what we do and it's authentic, then it's a personal rejection. And so possibly there's a fear that comes in when you're going to write something that you know is going to be published. And the temptation is to not be authentic, because then if it's rejected, it's not a rejection of you. It's a rejection of this fake trying to hit the mark person. You see what I'm saying? So it's maybe a protection to not write authentically, because then the rejection is easier to take.
And not to belabor a point, but as you're saying that, I'm getting goosebumps because I'm also thinking about all the times that she has like been writing something and then she switches what she's writing because she's been reading another genre or reading something else, and she starts writing something in that genre or something similar to that author. And that could play into the same issue, is that if she's concerned about rejection and concerned about people like not accepting it, then she's going to constantly be looking to copy people that are successful. I'm not saying that her writing is a copy, but like the inspiration she's copying it for. And she sees someone who's successful, she reads something that she enjoys, and she's like, oh, that's what I want to do. And then all of a sudden, all of her focus switches over to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then, but yet this is still so much better.
It is so amazing. And I mean, it just, it's the classic case of like, there is not anybody who's going to be you, and the world needs you. And that's why God made you who you are and gave you the experiences that you have, is because you just need to be authentic. So, I mean, I did a Google Doc with her and I highlighted a few things, so she uses the word tuck pretty closely together twice. So like things like that, I point out, maybe you would want a different word choice. I have a question about the midnight sun setting. Like, I don't understand enough about Alaska and the midnight sun. And like, so is it 24-hour daylight right now? And so you know what I mean? Like, so her putting that little segment in there made questions come in my head. Whether or not she needs to address them is something for her to think about. But it did make me go, the midnight sun hadn't set. Like, what does that mean, since I'm not from Alaska? Do you know what I mean?
Right. But if this is part of a bigger project, like if this is part of a bigger book, she could already have addressed that, because I almost don't want to clunk this down It's so good as it is. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I see what you're saying. It's a great critique that she just needs to consider when she puts this in part of something else.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. If it's addressed somewhere else, all the better. I had some things highlighted that I loved. I did not understand why she wouldn't want to cry. I would just like a couple of words of like, I don't know. Daddy says big girls don't cry. I tried to hold back my tears. Well, why? Like, is she spanked if she cries about not getting her way? Like, whatever.
Yeah. That stood out to me too, because I thought to myself, a little kid is my kids, especially my youngest, will cry at the drop of a hat if she thinks she's gonna get her way. And this little girl wants to go with her mom. So yeah, that's a really good point. Tell us
I
why.
would like just a couple of words to indicate that the flicking water drops was like a playful gesture. She giggles in response or something. Otherwise, the flicking water drops is kind of just hanging there. But again, these are very little things. And then I didn't understand about bubbles. Like, is there a bubble bath? Like, I don't know. It didn't really seem to fit with the world that she had been building for us. Like maybe herbs or something would be in the water, but I didn't really see bubble bath. And then also, I would like her to mention, at the very end, I couldn't stop worrying that Mama would get lost without the eagle to help her find her way back to me, or something once again referring to Mama would get lost and I have her eagle. Do you know what I mean? So just a little bit. But again, that's it. Not a whole lot.
And how about if when she addresses that, she says something to the fact that, and if Mama gets lost, it's all my fault. I think that's where she's leading us, is that there'll be this, maybe some guilt that Angelica carries. Maybe I'm wrong, but that would have been, that's kind of where my mind was with it. So,
yeah. Okay. So anyway, I think that's it.
All right. Anything else? All right,
That's
Tina. Come back out of the isolation booth, Tina.
Tina, are you frozen?
I thought I was muted. I was looking for the button to unmute myself.
From our perspective, you're just doing this. But you must have been looking for the button. We're just like,
I was looking for the button to unmute myself, but it wasn't clicked, so I was confused. So I was, anyway. Thanks for your feedback, guys. I'm glad that you liked it. It's funny, you said that I should put a line in there about if she got lost, it would be her fault. I actually had it in there and took it out.
Oh.
Yeah, I think you would have to be pretty artful with it, because if you just put it in there, and then it would be all my fault. I don't think it would match.
It didn't sound right in the paragraph, and I didn't really know how to fix it at the time. And since this was just a pre-writing exercise for me to get into her head, I really didn't think it was that important, I guess.
Right.
So
again, it's just a little piece of meat that you don't even have to take, because I got the right feeling from reading this. I assume that's the direction you're going. So
yeah. And this whole discussion about why some of the writing that I submitted to you was off. I actually, in the week that I had, that was kind of a vacation from before I started my editing process, I decided to go back and review the Story Genius stuff. The idea of her having a necklace is kind of a new idea within the last couple of months that I've been thinking about, that she needed to have something physical on her person that represented what was going on inside of her. It's kind of a trope of hero journey stories that they have like an emblem, or they have a little trinket. Yeah, then it's something they have to give up at some point during the story. And so I was thinking about that, and so I went through and redid this particular exercise. This is the redone one, to include the necklace. And I feel like her wound, or her belief that because she was bad, she stole and she lied, her mother got lost and couldn't come home. And I actually have more of this where she confesses to her grandma, and her grandma takes her to make a sacrifice for forgiveness. And that's when she starts to have a negative feeling about the sacrifices, because she realizes at that point that she was the one that did the wrong thing and this animal had to die. And then compounded on that is she believed that the proof of God's forgiveness would be her mother coming back.
Oh, and then she didn't. Oh,
And
that's
so
so good.
every time that she goes to make the sacrifice, her mother doesn't come back. And so this adds to her feeling that she's too far gone to be forgiven.
That's so good, Tina. That was what was missing from the first one. Oh my gosh, that's so good. That is exactly what the book needed.
So what I was doing was I was writing plot instead of story.
Yes. Yes, that is it exactly.
Mm-hmm. And so my editing process might actually take me longer than I first decided it was going to take me, because I have to add the story into my plot.
It'd be worth the wait.
Yeah. So
wow, what a breakthrough.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that I'm pretty sure God put that idea in my head, but I went back through and reread the whole book of The Story Genius, and the whole thing is about, you have plot and then you have story. And the story is like the internal thing, and the plot is the external stuff that happens. So I have all the external stuff that happens down, but I have to get the story in there. So
that's good stuff. Anyone that's subscribing to this just got a great lesson right there. And that's a good book. You would suggest that book to anyone listening?
Oh yeah.
I would.
And,
it's great.
I hope it doesn't take you 10 years like it did me to figure this out.
Well, let's be fair. You say that in jest and it is all fun, but you haven't been working on your craft for 10 years.
No, I haven't.
You've actually made very rapid progress. I mean, for being, you basically been doing it intensive for like 2 years now, right? Yeah. So actually, look at how far you've come in just a short amount of time. So good for you.
And any author, their first book is going to be the hardest one. Like, and probably a lot of people just throw it away. They don't do anything with it. Like, so you're struggling through this because well, you're struggling through this because you believe it, that God gave you this story. I'm struggling through book 3 because I really believe that God gave me that story. So like,
and that's your first one though.
It was my
even
first
though
one.
It's first book 3. Yeah.
Yep. So we have similar experiences. So, you only get better by writing. So, you're an amazing writer. So don't get yourself like discouraged because this is a struggle. It's a struggle, but it'll be worth it in the end.
And it's funny, when I reread, I don't know if it was rereading The Story Genius. I think it might have been, or it could have been Jenny Nash. Jenny Nash is a book coach, and she basically uses the Story Genius method of book. They call it a book blueprint. She was actually the guinea pig in the Story Genius book.
Oh.
So they go through and they have an author that is coming up with a story based on their method. She's the one who was writing that story, and they show how she went through the process. And now she actually teaches that to people. So one of the two said that people run into problems when they try to follow story structure things like the hero's journey, because it focuses on the plot and not the story.
Well, I think it is going to make you an all-around better resource for new writers or critique groups too, Tina, because now I think that you'll be able to help people see that about their own writing and help them move in a better direction. But it's just so amazing how and that is what it is, because like when you sit to tell a story based on a word prompt, you're just telling us a story. And so it doesn't get all hung up in structure and everything. So very good, very insightful. I love it. I got
hung up on structure because I had to have 80,000 words.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so like this big thing looming over my head of I have to have 80,000 words. So what's going to happen? Plot that's going to give me 80,000 words.
Yes.
So now I don't have that looming over my head. I have 70,000 words of plot. So when I go in there and add the story to the plot, it's going to be longer. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to probably have to cut some of the plot out because the story's going to change some of that.
Yeah.
But.
Wow, what a breakthrough. I love it. I love this. It's speaking to me as well. It's really helping me think about some problems that I'm having also. Very good. Thanks for telling us that.
No problem. And thank you for your feedback. My back is fed.
All right, then it's Jennifer's turn.
All
what
right.
do you want from me, Jennifer? Please.
I'm totally scared because this chapter is brand new. Like a lot of the things that I've been struggling with in this book are because these are old chapters that I've had to restructure or rewrite or edit a million times. And this I added in because I realized I really needed more Will in the book, and realized he is one of the inaugural Michigan State Troopers, which originally would have been the Michigan State Constabulary, and he was doing no police work. So, along with the fact that I also needed to get some other plot points that are later on need to make more sense in the whole thing. So I'm a little scared because it's not. I have edited it, but I'm sure there's a lot of problems with it. So I guess what I'm looking for is if there's any huge problems, I don't know. I just think you're gonna. I don't know. I'm just scared. We'll see. I don't want to say anything more because I'm just gonna see what you guys say.
All right. So silence. All right, Rhonda. I think I know exactly what you're gonna say. I just want to know if you say it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to see more of Will. I am
A Will fan?
Yeah, I am a Will fan, and I am glad to hear that she's going to be adding more of them. Wasn't disappointed by Phoebe. Phoebe? Right. Yeah, Phoebe.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Chloe for some reason. She's still got her pride issues to deal with, but everybody has that in some amount. I really don't. I've got one little tiny piece of meat, and it's only because of what it made me picture. The word mortician, the phrase crime scene, and powders. Okay, so the first two, it just brought me too much into the present. So I don't, she can, if she likes those, she can keep them. If not, then I'd be happy to have some suggestions for her. And powders. Okay, so I don't know if you guys all were Little House on the Prairie fans like I was, but there was one episode where Albert they were in the city and he started taking drugs, and
that episode freaked me out when I was a kid.
Yes, me too. I hated it. So powders is totally appropriate, and it probably was maybe not the image she wanted, but it put me in the mindset of, in the right mindset, I think, for reading it. But anyway, that is like the sum of my meat.
Well, I can't believe that
full of bread.
I can't believe that I'm more angry than you about her shoving past Will and dressing him down right in front of his subordinates.
Well,
how can I be more mad about that than you, Rhonda?
Yeah. Well, I've come to know her, and I know that she's got a growth spurt to go through. So,
but I still think that she would never demean him in front of people that he's supposed to be a superior to.
Yeah,
I felt that was really how they always say you don't want to castrate your husband.
Yes.
That was that kind of I would feel like she would at least have a minimum amount of I'm not going to do that. Do you know what I'm saying? It was, to me, too far, unless I don't understand that she said it too quietly for them to hear or something like that. But I really did not like it. And I thought that you were going to come out guns a-blazing about it. But so that's kind of throwing meat out there before I give bread. So I apologize for that. But, I think it does a great job of showing, yes, Will actually does police work, as he's not just eye candy or whatever. I did not know how I felt about this, though, because I kind of felt like this is a whole different novel. I thought she wanted to make this shorter. I'm like, how the heck is she going to do solving this crime of who shot JR on top of her whole frontier romance? And then also I felt like a shooting. Wow, that's pretty gross and gritty for sort of a lighthearted When Calls the Heart kind of a tale. I don't know. It just seemed very much whoa, we are turning a page and now we're telling a whole different doodad here. And I'm not saying I didn't like it. I'm just kind of surprised that we would go so waist deep into a whole different genre and plot line and everything else. I didn't not like it, though. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm totally with you, because I was like, wow, this is really getting to be my kind of story, because it's romance, but it's also got the mystery, So, yeah.
What did you think, Tina?
I liked that. mystery part.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're all gonna like it. None of us are like begging to read a romance, but still.
Mm.
Who is Jimmy? Do we know Jimmy?
Oh, we are so disjointed in our reading of
Yeah.
this that we forget who people are because
Yeah.
we're supposed to know who that kid is too. Is it Jimmy? Jack.
Right.
Jack. We're supposed to know
I
him.
really feel like I should be upset that Jimmy is dead.
Like we
But
know
I'm not
Jimmy.
sure
Oh,
that I
he's the
remember-
victim.
Yeah,
Petey.
the dead one.
Petey.
Oh, Petey.
Petey is
My-
the dog from The Little Rascals. So if it's a shock dog, now we're more in the realm of fun, frontier, lighthearted.
Mhm.
It's not.
I don't know why I was thinking Jimmy. Anyway, have we met Petey before? Was he one of the kids that helped in the garden? Like, I wasn't sure because I didn't. That would be something I would go back and look for.
I don't
if
think
that's the
so
whole
because
thing.
then I don't think he would be calling her the mother. I think he would be calling her Mrs. So-and-so because they had a relationship with those kids, the kids that he was giving candy to and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean he knows the parents, though.
Yeah,
or
but
the
he's
mother.
talking to his contemporaries, so maybe that's just
Oh.
lingo
yeah.
that they use in a case.
Mhm.
Maybe if he was referring to her directly, he might use her name.
Hmm.
Trying to figure out if Phoebe knew who she was.
It completely read to me as a stranger to him, which
Mhm.
now that you mention it is a little odd if it's small townish. So I mean, either it's a big enough situation to where Will wouldn't know who this person is, or it's an intimate enough situation to where he does know who it is and wouldn't have to ask, is that this kid's mother? Do you know what I mean? So that's a good question. I don't know.
Okay, that's what I was just wondering if I needed to be mad at her for killing Pete. I didn't know.
Yeah, like were we supposed to be endeared to him, right? Like,
right. And
like
you, I really didn't like her little comment about referring to her as pastor in the presence of others
Mhm.
in front of other people.
Mhm.
Like, I would probably think that's just fine if it was just the two of them.
Mhm.
But yeah, but like Rhonda said, maybe that's something, a growth, or maybe part of the story is her needing to apologize or whatever. So,
I mean, I guess so, but that's the kind of thing. Like I read one time in this devotional where a man was approached his wife and put his hand on her shoulder, and she shoved it off. And every single other person in that room got the very clear message that she had no respect for him. And it was just all she did was shrug his hand away from her shoulder. And it telegraphed very clearly, and that's an unfixable impression.
Right.
So if Will and Phoebe are going to be a couple in this town that is like, you know, this is how you treat your husband. This is like, I don't think that is like, you can come back from that even just by saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it. Unless you say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it to every person who witnessed that. Like to me, and again, author's choice, I guess, but I'm saying that's how I come away with it. So I've shut the whole conversation down.
no, I'm just agreeing with you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because so anyway, that's kind of how I felt about it. But that was really, I mean, yay, a mystery, you know, kind of like you ladies said, ooh, delicious and fun. But it just seemed like, wow, a lot of work for this author to do to write sort of two
it's
stories.
already in there and she's just kind of adding it from Will's perspective. We haven't read ahead, so we don't know what's coming.
And so now people are getting shot in the town, like goodness.
Yeah.
And I think it was that guy, you know, the
nasty
guy
one?
because he had a car.
I told you he was no good.
That's right.
All right. Well, I think that we've kind of said enough. I mean, let's let her out and hear what she has to say.
Thank you, ladies. That was a lot of, gosh, it's so hard being in isolation. Can I just say that right now? I'm going to move backwards in your questions. I see what you're saying, Jamie, the devotional you're talking about. I completely agree with that thinking with my husband, but they're not married. And Phoebe has no intention of marrying him. So she doesn't have respect for him like that. So that's part of it. But I think I am going to go back and make sure it's very clear, like that I'll make her quieter about it, or like gritting through her teeth or something, because I guess you guys miss it. He grabbed her by the elbow and drug her away. So they're not
Oh.
actually right there, but again, I haven't edited this that great. So it's not super clear. So she doesn't like berate him right in front of them, but I wanted you guys to see that he was wrong too. He should never call her Phoebe. In that time period, you wouldn't call a woman by their first name, let alone to someone who was like supposed to be in a position of respect like she was. So he was wrong. Like you guys always ignore the things he does wrong, but like he should never have called her by her first name, even like in shock. He shouldn't have done that. So she has a right to be upset, but she does not address him in front of his subordinates, even
Well,
though
that fixes it for me right there. That fixes it for
okay.
sure.
But
and
on
I didn't
top of that,
ignore what he did wrong. I didn't realize that was
Me neither. I wouldn't realize that was a faux pas.
oh, okay. And I don't. We're not really. You guys are not reading this right in order, but she doesn't realize that those are subordinates. She thinks Will's just some sort of like. She doesn't get that he is the
guy.
The guy. Now let me see. Where are we in the story?
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, in a couple more chapters, she's gonna start getting it, I think. But yeah, that so she makes it a fool of herself a little bit later because So
I just want to point out that she always expects complete respect for her position from him, but she doesn't respect him as an officer of the law.
Right. Yep.
And whether he's a high-ranking officer or not.
Right. So see, that's part of her arc is that she's going to have to grow in a lot of ways. And part of the reason why she doesn't respect that is just because it's Will and she's still angry, even though she's starting to come around.
Familiar with him, just like when he calls her by her name, they're childhood friends.
Yep. So she wants him to, yep, exactly. She doesn't want him to call her Phoebe, but yeah, she just sees him as, oh, it's just Will. So yes, I'm glad you picked up on that because that's really kind of the feeling I'm trying to give. As far as like the mystery, it fits in. I don't have to rewrite a whole bunch of stuff. So
good.
You'll see as you read it. So it's not gonna be a lot of extra work for me. Okay, so Petey. No, we don't know him. I try to address that's why Jack is in the scene. That's the whole reason Jack is in the scene is so that I don't have to like keep saying the boy that died. Like Jack knew him because Jack's been there like pretty much his whole life. Where the state troopers are newer to the area. I do, though. I believe I need to address the fact of why Will doesn't know them personally. Probably they live more on the outskirts. I'll probably like make it more like that because that also would explain why he would have been involved in the distillery that they busted because the distilleries were not in town. They were out like in the like country. So I'm glad you guys brought that up. That would really help. The powders, that is exactly where I got that from. Rhonda was from Little House on the Prairie. Like I wanted to explain why the mom didn't hear any of this till the morning because I don't want this happening at night because Phoebe would not have been like, there in the middle of the night. So that's why I remembered that. So that's exactly where I got that from. But I'm glad you picked up on mortician and crime scene because I struggled with both of those words and I researched it and morticians that's really what they were called then, but it does feel too modern. Like when I'm writing the Westerns right now, which would have only been about 30 years before this, honestly, maybe 40. They would have been the barbers that would have done it. But at this point, it wouldn't. Yeah. But at this point, they wouldn't have done that. Like they've already, like at this point in history, they would have already started embalming. They started embalming like during the Civil War. So it would have been a very common practice. So like I don't know how. So if you want to help me, that would be awesome because I really don't know how to word both of those things, crime scene and mortician, and make it period. So, but again, I just need to get the chapter done. Yeah. So those are things I'll go back when I edit and fix that. So.
Well, let me just say something about that before you move on. The crime scene I'm not sure about yet, but I know in Genesee County in southern Michigan, they had coroners by 1880. And so I really think that I was trying to look it up real quick before we started today. But I think that if they had state troopers in the UP, they would have had coroners up there by then too, especially, 40 years after we had it down here.
Right. But I'm wondering if in the rural areas, who would have taken care of the body until the coroner could get there? They probably only had like one coroner per county, right? I would think.
Yeah. Right. Well, the coroner is the one that dressed the body in Genesee County, at least for the funeral also. And I'll tell you that the journals that I was telling you guys about last week, a coroner is mentioned when his brother dies. They're waiting for the coroner to come and take the body away. So anyway, that's just a little tidbit for you from real life.
Yeah.
The
All
word
right.
that
So
came
use
to my
that.
mind was Undertaker, but I don't know if that's
Mhm.
correct at all in any way.
Mhm.
That's just what came into my head when
Yep.
no, Undertaker
I'm-
does sound good.
That's good.
Corner too.
So is this kid like how did all that work? Is he just destined to be buried? Did they lay them out? Like what is the deal? Just curious now.
In
I don't
her
know,
story,
and I don't know that I need to address it.
No,
like, I
I'm
mean,
just
the scene
do you
can,
guys know?
you know.
well, I know that there's a logbook at the museum, and it lists everything that the coroner did, and whether someone paid to be embalmed, or if they wanted a nice coffin, or if they wanted a pine box
Wow.
to bury the next day. So it depended on. It wasn't just flat out. You died, you get embalmed, you get a nice coffin, whatever. They had
It was
more.
what you could afford, maybe.
Yes.
Right. And then at this point there were funeral homes, but they're so far up north that they're probably a little bit back in time. And so before funeral homes, people had, we call it a parlor. The parlor was literally built into houses for that purpose. Like people would use it as a
Wow.
sitting room, but if you find an old house that has a door, like a front door, but then there's also a door in the parlor. Like most houses, people have put like a little porch off of it, like so that like it's just like a another extra or whatever, but there would not have been steps. There would have been a door in the parlor without steps, so that because it was believed that you shouldn't take a body out of a door that humans cross over. Probably superstitious or whatever, but they would be a door that was just for that purpose. There'd be no steps, so they could just take the coffin and just kind of slide it out into like the back of a truck or the back of the hearse or the buckboard, whatever, and head first, never feet first. I don't know why head first, but that's how it was. So probably up there, this woman's going to have her son's casket in her parlor. It's probably, what they would have had up there, because I'm
Wow.
guessing it's just too rural.
Yeah.
Or they bury him right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know if laying people out was like a rich person thing or an every person thing, or just curious. I know it doesn't belong in your story, but it brings up the question to me.
Yeah, if you really want to do some research, just look at old obituaries. I read an unusual amount of old obituaries. And yeah,
That explains a lot, Rhonda.
Yeah, John Doe died today. The viewing and funeral will be at the family homestead tomorrow. Burial, in their backyard or whatever. And actually, this is totally unrelated, but I had a family member who their body was laid out in their front
parlor
room. Yep. And the son-in-law came for the viewing or whatever, and he died right there. So they ended up having a double funeral the next day.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that? I'll have to send you guys an obituary because they worded it. I just love the way old newspapers worded stuff like that.
Wow.
It's funny, like you're reading the obituaries and I go straight to images. Like for me, that pictures tell so much for me. And there were cameras were pretty common in this time period that I'm writing in. And you can't believe the number of family portraits there are people around the casket and the dead person in the picture.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes the person is posed.
Yes. Yes.
And they paint open eyes on their face on the picture.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So gross.
That's so interesting. But put them out head first.
Right. Make sure it's head first. But let's end on a positive note. And I just want to say my favorite feedback of the favorite words of the feedback the whole day was eye candy. Hashtag eye candy. That's going to be my favorite early review of Will, eye candy. So
yes.
Thank you, ladies.
Yes, Will does actually do police work.
My back is so well fed. It's getting my back fat rolls are getting bigger. So thank you very much.
All right. So I guess that's it for the postcast. Tell your friends that we're here and that we're fun and that they should also become a Patreon. Or a patron. So thank you for tuning in.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.